if reforms were indeed coming, and if Cyril Ramaphosa was planning to implement reform, then why would the financial minister put the lowest GDP forecast that we have ever seen since 2005? And the answer, unfortunately, is that there are no reforms ahead.
Hello, David Ansari here of the Centre for Risk Analysis. We at the CRA offer our clients a range of strategic intelligence services to help them better understand the present conditions in South Africa today, as well as the future trajectory of the country. In this clip from an exclusive client webinar, CRA analyst Bheki Mahlobo looks back at the recent performance of South Africa's economy and tries to understand where our economy is headed into the future. If you enjoyed these insights and you'd like to discuss further with us, please do reach out via the link in the description below. Enjoy.
So what does that tell us of the economic outlook of the country? Well, let's have a look. And on the first slide in this section, we have a look at February GDP budget forecast and that of reality. What we have done here is that we have tracked GDP forecast of the National Treasury in every budget speech in February from 2005 until the projected year of 2023. And what we find is that from 2005 until 2006, the projections of the financial minister were actually of that of a pessimistic outlook of the South African economy. In other words, the economic reality of the country actually outperformed that of National Treasury figures. During that period, Trevor Manuel was the financial minister, and that was the leadership of Tito Mboweni. Subsequent to that period, we saw that National Treasury figures have tended to be wrong by a margin of 50% from 2009 until 2019. The figure that you see on your screen here, 2020, the negative 7%, that's an outlier, largely due to the pandemic. However, we don't think that the National Treasury has lost its ability to anticipate economic activity in the country. Largely what we see is that they use GDP forecast figures as a way to prop up the South African economy and not being in line with that of reality. And let's say you call us out and you say that we're wrong. We're wrong in the fact that we're saying that there are no reforms. Well, the smoking gun here is that if you look at the year 2023, the projected GDP figure for 1.6, which was projected by the previous finance minister, Tito Mboweni, a projection of 1.6, which is the lowest GDP forecast by a National Treasury official since 2005. If reforms were indeed coming, and if Cyril Ramaphosa was planning to implement reform, then why would the financial minister put the lowest GDP forecast that we have ever seen since 2005? And the answer, unfortunately, is that there are no reforms ahead. So where does that leave South Africa in the long-term perspective? Well, let's have a look there.
Enjoying this analysis? Click here to sign up for our 30-day free trial for more content from the CIA.
And we have a look by looking at real GDP growth in South Africa and the lead indicator from 1960 until 2021. You read the lead indicator on the right-hand axis, which is the black line, and South African real GDP growth on the left-hand axis. The trend line of the lead indicator is what is important here, not necessarily its absolute value. Every peak in the lead indicator corresponds with an increase in economic activity in the country, and every decline in the lead indicator corresponds with a decline in economic activity in the country. And what we have seen is that in 2007, from 2007 until where we find ourselves today, the lead indicator has been on its long-term flatline trajectory since its inception in 1960, suggesting that the South African economy is heading towards a period of economic stagnation, of low economic growth and high levels of unemployment. And if you recall the call I made for you in the previous section, where you have a decline in social economic standing in the country and high levels of poverty, you are faced with high levels of crime that leads to an impact on businesses negatively. Unfortunately, this also negatively impacts the government in terms that the government will now then run out of money, which we see on the next slide. You're looking at the chart of the main budget revenue, expenditure, as well as GDP from 1994 until 2023. You read GDP on the left-hand axis and you read national revenue and expenditure on the right-hand axis. Although our outlook of the current situation in South Africa is that of a pessimistic view, the forgotten story of South Africa's early years and South Africa's early years of democracy and early years of the ANC is that the economy actually did grow, which is a point that David made earlier in the presentation. This was the early years of Nelson Mandela and that of Tito Mboweni, in which GDP growth levels averaged about 3 to 5%, as well as an increase in government revenue and a decline in government expenditure, which resulted in a budget surplus, which you see in the years 2005 all the way until 2007. That was because of the policies and the way of thinking of the early administration of the ANC, such policies such as that of GEAR. Subsequent to that period, we had a change in the way of thinking of the ANC administration and a change from GEAR policies to redistributive policies that has resulted in a decline in economic activity in the country, an increase in government expenditure, and declining government revenues, which you see as the crocodile's mouth from the year 2020 until the projected years going forward. This will prove to be a challenge for the new financial minister as to how do you rail in expenditure while increasing revenue. And the financial minister did make some signals as to that he would like to see reforms. However, our call on this is that this is largely fidgeting around the edges. Reform is a nice word, and it's most definitely what the country needs. However, we need a government that is inclined to implement reforms. The current administration, in order for them to implement reforms, they need to be faced with extreme amount of pressure, suggesting to us that unfortunately they are not reformist in their way of thinking. So when you have high levels of government expenditure and low levels of government revenue, the result is that you have high levels of deficits, which we read from in the next chart, which is the budget deficit from 1913 until 2023. The current deficit levels that South Africa is currently running, which you see as -14 and projected to be real into -9, have only been eclipsed in 3 times in South Africa's history. First, during the First World War at 11.6, second, during the Second World War at -10.9, and third, towards the end of the evil apartheid regime. Now, the effects of running out of money have the same effects as running out of money in a household. It leads to divorces in households. And this sets the stage for great political realignment in the country as the government is running out of money. A point that I'd like to emphasize for you in this chart is the 3 bars that you see on the top there. That's above the 0 level line. This was the time that South Africa achieved a budget surplus, unseen before in South Africa's 100-year history, suggesting to us that the policies that were implemented by the previous administration were successful compared to the ones that we're currently witnessing. And the result of having high levels of budget deficits is that you have high levels of debt, which we read in the following slide.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this analysis and you would like to access all of our online webinars and digital reports, you can do so by clicking on the link to our 30-day free trial, which is embedded in the pinned comment as well as in the description below. My name is David Ansara. This is the CRA. Until next time, take care.